we're running out of descriptive words for how stupid these people are, Charles.
Oh, it's just epic. I mean, this is actually the art department once again is done itself. We're going to have 5 books at this rate, because you can't just throw out anything here. They're all so good.
Could be multiple editions. The NFTs haven't been selling that well, but that's okay. I'm not really very familiar with this movie, Charles, The Bridge Over the River Kwai, but what is it about? The bridge blows up, doesn't it?
I should know the plot, and I don't, but I think it's, the way I was going to go with it is, you look at this bridge, and I think this is a movie from what, 1950s?
60s.
Okay. So this is the model bridge that Joe Biden wants to build. It'll take probably 25 years in each city where he wants to build it. But you start with Biden, and in normal sports, in high school sports and elementary school sports, there's sort of a tradition that when one team is really much better than the other team, you don't have a basketball game 96-2, that kind of stuff. And I kind of feel like we're in that zone with Biden now. But on the other hand,
he should be coaching an elementary school basketball team?
He should be the deputy assistant water boy. I mean, yes. If that. And I think water boys are very important. But to go to Pittsburgh, the way he went to Pittsburgh, and then to say as earnestly as he did that this city, Pittsburgh, is, and a little known fact, Pittsburgh is the city in the civilized world that has more bridges than any other city in the civilized world. And I just immediately said, bullshit.
It's wrong.
Can't be right. So you did some sleuthing almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
And what are the relative numbers? I mean, remember, this is the President of the United States who is also saying to the world that there's an imminent invasion of Ukraine by Russia. We really have to do something about it right away. Okay, here's Venice, 391. Okay.
This isn't the list I had the other day, but this is number 5, so maybe it's the same, actually.
Here's Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
446.
Number 4.
New York, is that in the civilized world? Maybe he thinks it isn't now in the civilized world,
Not
so
really.
we wouldn't count it. 789. Now, Jason, I know numbers are not where you start every day, but is 789 significantly larger than, what was the number for Pittsburgh?
440 something?
446?
It's
I mean, if I
bigger.
said to you, you can have $446,000 or $789,000.
I'll take the 7, Chuck.
Okay, so that's New York, which he's going to visit this week.
Do I win?
He's going to Amsterdam. Is that in the civilized world?
See, this is a little bit cheating, though. I mean, I get it,
I
but
don't
this
think
had
so.
to be obvious. There's a million bridges in Amsterdam.
Well, actually,
1,281, yeah. But almost every block, there's a bridge.
sure. And then keep going down the list. Number 1
Hamburg.
is the home of the hamburger, 2,300.
That looks cool. I've never been there.
I've been there. It's very nice. But 2,300, is that a bit
Charles,
more?
facts.
But you can't let, I mean, if you want to let Al Sharpton or that idiot boot edge, go around making a statement like that, that's one thing. Our dude is the dude who makes the last call on dropping nuclear weapons around the world, on drone
Let's
strikes.
drop 400.
Yeah.
Sir, you dropped 700. Well, it's less, isn't it?
Well, that's how he left Afghanistan, right? You know? And this is not, I mean, I'll forgive, the guy is 79 years old and he's had a long and troubled life. And I'm willing to, I mean, people make mistakes, especially people who run big bureaucracies. That's the lesson of General Electric. I mean, Jack Welch was lionized by Fortune magazine, which is supposed to be, a semi-serious business magazine. They used to do Businessman of the Year.
But isn't it, do you not
it's all
like
captured.
Fortune?
Not at all. It's a comic strip.
Okay.
But it's always captured by the advertisers. But Welch, as he left, I mean, Jack Welch, on the way out the door, all kinds of people were doing special tributes to him, special tributes to his life, including the editor of the Harvard Business Review. And she went up to give an interview and ended up in bed with him.
Oh, right.
But nonetheless, still wrote this
But isn't
thing.
he like 90?
He's still dead.
But when did that girl have an affair with him?
Oh, in 99, 2000, 2001, and then she married him, Susie Welch.
But he was super old, wasn't he?
Easy, Jason, easy.
I mean, look at him there.
Well, this
like
is
Yoda.
much more recent. I mean, yeah, he was not a very tall man, and he was just supremely annoying. And in hindsight, when you think about Jack Welch and what he did to GE, he pulled $1 billion personally out of the experience of being there 20 years, and the company's fucked. I mean, he left a smoking mess underneath what the mainstream media and the punditry missed, because they covered up all the garbage with smoke and mirrors. And so it is possible for a large organization to be run into the ground. There you go.
There he is now.
When he was handsomer.
Yeah. It's the baby Yoda.
Yeah. So I'll forgive Joe one or two missteps, but actually I would give him, when he got to the White House, having spent 8 years as vice president and 4,000 years as a senator, you can't say he didn't know Washington, D.C., he didn't know the intricacies of how things get done, how to make the sausage.
Where do you guys keep the peanut butter around here?
Where do you keep the Girl Scouts, more importantly in his case. But so, I mean, this is just, has been a very bad, I would argue, year, and even worse, week for this, this muffin head.
For all of us.
Well, but in particular for him, because, while you're going, every legislative initiative that you've tried recently has failed. And it really doesn't help your case when you're trying to convert somebody and say, you're a lying, dog-faced pony soldier, Joe Manchin. You're a racist for not doing it, but I'd like you to support the bill. I mean, that's not going to happen, right? And so they screwed up the filibuster. They didn't take people seriously on that. They have screwed up to a fairly well the argument that we need to rush in to save Ukraine. I mean, the Ukrainians are saying, no, you don't. We just want cash. You don't need to come here. And it's crucial that NATO do this and NATO do that. We've been shouldering the financial and military expense of NATO since inception. They have made contributions, our partners, but not to the level that we have. And this man who rushed to the exits, rushed down the toilet bowl in Afghanistan, right? I mean, it's disgusting what is left behind in that place. And
we don't yet fully...
We have no clue. It's just like we don't... There's a lot of things we don't know yet, and we're going to find out about, I fear, and it's not going to be good.
But you mentioned Manchin. Isn't this him?
That's Manchin. That's Robert KKK Byrd.
That's what I mean.
And
so they're all hanging out with the racist KKK guy. Why is Manchin there hanging out with the KKK?
Fellow West Virginian. Robert KKK Byrd was from West Virginia.
I see.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Kind of a hairy version of Jack Welch. But anyway.
Also a baby Yoda.
Yeah. So Biden has, when we think about the damage done to NATO, I mean, my attitude on NATO and on any of these foreign approaches is to say, why do we need it? Why does America,
in 2022,
one of 200 bigger countries, more established countries, why do we need this very expensive operation? What are we worried about? What's the threat? Can we convert the threat to at least neutral and ideally to an ally? And we were down, believe it or not, under Bush, we were down a track of including Russia in the G8 meetings, trying to turn them at least neutral, and maybe holding out the carrot of they too could join NATO or some sort of alliance, so that we wouldn't be also concerned about Russia. And instead, what this idiot has done and the way he left Afghanistan, trying to blame it on Trump. If I'm a British soldier or the parents of a slain British soldier, I would give a shit what America wanted to do. The way we rushed out of Afghanistan, we didn't even talk to the Brits.
Trump mentioned it in Texas last night. He said it was a reputation changing or something like that. I listened to that full Trump speech last night. We'll talk about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll come back into that if that's okay. So on the heels of really screwing up Afghanistan, now coordinating with the deep state in the UK to try to sell this fiction that Russia's about to go in for no reason. They may go in, but I don't think it's for no reason. I think the reason Russia is so concerned about what we're doing over there is that 1945 cost the Russians a lot vis-a-vis the Germans. And prior to this reunification of Germany, we had West Germany, a relatively a strong economy, but smaller in terms of territory and population, that was facing down East Germany, right at its border. So it was a little bit back on its heels. Because of reunification, now you've got one German people, one German tradition, one German history.
One less wall.
One less wall. We should find that wall and put it down there in the southern border.
They smashed it, I remember in college.
Yeah. But the point is that if you're sitting there as somebody neighboring reunified Germany and neighboring some of these states and fearful that you're going to be attacked yet again, and this idiot moron, President Biden, is out there saying, we got to do this, we're going to send in the largest expeditionary force ever, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to sanction Putin himself. I mean, as Putin, you got to listen to that and say, this guy could do a lot of stupid shit between now and whenever it is he's forced out of there. And I better make sure he understands, don't do this stupid shit anymore. So instead of doing that, he's still yakking off and, making all kinds of crazy-ass statements, and now trying to sell an infrastructure bill using the Pittsburgh thing as an example, where the numbers are all wrong again.
Back to Putin for a second, Charles. Like, you've negotiated, you've told us, some of the biggest deals, and Al-Walid and all these guys. And then you also... Well, but you also had a thing with a cat, right? So it's like negotiating with a cat, whether you're Putin, Charles Ortel, whatever. When Putin's in his winter cabin and the dog is running around, he's negotiating with the dog in a different way than he is with, let's say, Xi or Trump. But with Biden, it's a little bit more like the dog. He's going to mess up that cabin, and I can't speak to him like I would an adult person, but we're going to negotiate with this dog and make him do what he needs to do.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, if I were outside the country trying to figure out how to deal with the United States of America, I'd want to be reaching out to powerful people who could change Biden's mind, who could talk some sense into the group of handlers that's trying to pretend that President Biden is actually in control of anything. And one of the places I would start would be with this the guy I'm now going to call insane Ron Klain. I mean, the chief of staff. We might want to, I know I didn't ask you to do this before, but we might want to just pull up his Wikipedia page.
We have a very weird audio sync problem that I don't know if there's anything I can do about right now. Ron Klain?
Yeah, on Wikipedia.
Here he is.
So, he was also appointed by President Obama as White House Ebola Response Coordinator after the appearance of Ebola virus cases in the United States, serving from 2014 to 2015. Let's take a closer look at that credential. If we go into 2.6, how long exactly was he?
20 minutes.
On October 17th, 2014, he was appointed, and he finished in February 2015. So he worked half of October, all of November, during Christmas, all of January, and sometime in February he leaves. And he has, it says here, although Klain, according to Julie Hirschfield Davis, writing in the New York Times, authoritative now, had no record or expertise in Ebola.
Perfect.
Let's put him in charge. I mean, Ebola, that's just like, the flu.
But is he the smartest crackhead anybody knows? Because that's apparently a qualification.
Well, he's obviously, Biden has said it himself. The smartest person that Joe knows is Hunter. And exactly, look where he
What is this?
This is a left-leaning. There's another guy from the Skoll Foundation, or connected to Skoll, who was very centrally involved in the Clinton Foundation, called Eric Nonax. This is a left coast, left-leaning operation. But when we look through this guy's qualifications, he was chief of staff to Al Gore. He did clerk for a Supreme Court justice, which is not actually which one did he clerk for? It says law clerk to Byron White. So he did garner some high summa cum laude graduate from Georgetown, magna cum laude at Harvard Law School, and he did have some pretty high level
Tom Daschle appointed him to the...
Right, and one that I don't like, look at this. He was, in 1994, he became chief of staff and counselor to the drunken Attorney General Janet Reno. In
Was she
1994, oh yeah. In 1994, she would, this is about the time that they're really trying to bury any Clinton-related scandals because they are solely interested in getting reelected in 1996, and they didn't want to see what happened to George H.W. Bush in 92 happened to Bill Clinton in 96. So they're burying every scandal, using every crooked means to raise money. And he's centrally involved in all that in that time frame. And then he works on the Gore campaign. Then he goes in, and look at this, he's registers as a lobbyist for Fannie Mae.
Now, in
Fan-
2005, and then look what happened in 2008.
Until 2005. Fannie Mae, there are other crooked financial institutions, but Fannie Mae was legendarily crooked. And Jamie Gorelick was a senior person in Fannie Mae.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and a whole bunch of other crooks were in that thing. And that is an example of muddy-headed thuggery run amok. You know, the basic idea when you're trying to convince somebody
I can't believe it. Okay, sound is back, Charles.
Good. So I
think our audio sync is fixed.
Good. I was talking about Fannie Mae and why that was a disastrous organization. And remember, Fannie Mae, I gave my first warning about GE on Bloomberg News the day, I believe, either the day of or the day before the government seized, basically took control of Fannie Mae. And that was after many, many years of having political hacks, evidently like Ron Klain, but certainly like Jamie Gorelick, who was Deputy Attorney General for a time, and who is in the Clinton administration, and is credited, in quotes, with erecting the wall that between the FBI and the CIA.
Stovepipes. She called it stovepipes.
Is that what she called it?
I think so.
But she walked out of Fannie Mae with like $15 million.
What?
Yeah, this is the crookedness of the stuff. That the principle of Fannie Mae is stupid, basically. I mean, what the approach is?
Isn't it just a loan thing?
The whole idea of using financial gimmicks to make a home more affordable misses the fundamental point. The fundamental point is if somebody has no financial wealth,
can't buy a house.
Well, no. What you should care about is their level of job security where they work, and also their spending habits and their credit history and stuff like that. You can't if you're making it tougher for the American worker to survive in the private sector by the policies that have been promulgated both by Bushes and Democrats alike. What you're doing is you're just making it ever more difficult for the average person to buy a house and to keep it, and more importantly, to maintain it. When you go through the math, and I know you've done this a number of times, Jason. When you
Math
go through
is racist, Charles.
No, it's not.
You just stay home and get money.
Right, exactly.
That's the math. New math.
No. The real math, I mean, all houses require maintenance, and you have to have a budget for that, and that is funded with after-tax dollars. So you've got to earn money, pay your taxes, and do that. And beyond that, you've got to heat it, you've got to insure it, you've got to cool it, you've got to, all the different things that you've got to do. And if you're basically stealing money from a charity to survive.
That doesn't count as a job?
Well, these days, I think it's, you get accolades for that.
Highly sought after.
You have probably conferences. How much money did you steal from a charity? You're a piker. You only stole $2 billion. Anyway, so the concept behind Fannie Mae made no sense. And just the high level pass through this guy Klain's background. Yes, he's made money as a partner. He's made money in different operations, so he's got some money. That's great. But he's quite clearly tied into the far left progressive wing that is not popular, is even less popular, I think, today than it was leading up to the election. And this guy, I mean, he's a disaster. And you would never, for example, I mean, the person who's your chief of staff is supposed to keep you out of trouble. You're supposed to think these things through. This is the guy, if anybody deserves to be shit-canned right away, it's this guy. And as a guest, they won't do that. They'll keep him in. Maybe they'll promote him.
Oh, boy. Failing up. Charles, people are very interested in, first of all, the Canadian truck convoy, but also, I don't know if enough attention has been put on the Canadian aspect of this story about Patrisse Cullors of Black Lives Matter through her wife now, or husband. I don't know. I don't want to insult marrying people, but the house that they bought is the former headquarters of the Canadian Communist Party, which Pierre Trudeau was the head of.
Yeah, well, can we just continue? I just want to honor the art department. No, I want to finish on the poster if I can, and we'll get up to that, because it's a good segue. Then we have this bonehead. I mean, you talk to people who have read up on his role as Mayor Pete. What was the city he was?
Wasn't it Bend?
South Bend over, yeah.
Yeah.
And, the place is a disaster. It shouldn't be a disaster. Of course, it has Notre Dame there, and it's a lot of loyal alumni go through there to go to sports events and come back and whatever. And there should be a lot of tourist traffic, people trying to get their kids into the school.
They're both puckered.
For different reasons, maybe. But this moron, and he is a moron. Yes, he went to whatever schools he went to and worked at McKinsey and, is a Rhodes Scholar and all that. But he's a freaking moron.
Yeah.
I mean, to get up there, and what are his qualifications to be, was he transportation secretary?
Yeah.
He's been in a car?
He's been in a lot of cars,
He was
right.
a chauffeur in Afghanistan. I mean, this guy.
Yeah, he drove that guy in Afghanistan. It's a transportation
secretary.
Took the subway.
That's right.
Guy knows it all.
Guy knows how to hit. He was throwing a frisbee around, head of Space Force. And just some people have a way of talking that's just irritating. And this guy is one of them.
I don't know if I've ever heard his voice.
Oh, man. If we were going to fool around with that, we'd make it, super high pitch. But he just has this, he speaks like Obama, and he does the Jen Psaki. Have you noticed that trick? And Hillary Clinton?
Pointing,
just look my way.
Condescending.
They talk like this to make a point. So
I'm looking at you even when I'm not looking at you.
All right, okay.
I'm looking over here.
All right. But that's the kind of stuff. Somebody has sent him to, get the power suit, talk like this, and reveal, when you speak, remember always that you are revealing your great wisdom. Assume that the ordinary person listening to you it cannot possibly understand the genius behind you. That's the way this guy talks.
I'm picturing The King's Speech when you're
The
doing
King's
that.
Speech is a great movie.
Like an elocution coach.
Right, exactly. That was a really good movie.
But I guess that's what these guys have, right? Somebody who's telling them...
The buffoon speech. I mean, how to look like an idiot. So, I mean, he's taken charge. I've got a big problem with the supply chain. What I think I'll do to rest up and make sure I give it the attention it deserves is I'll go on paternity leave for several months.
Oh.
And then when I come back, I'll tell everybody that I fixed the problem. And the way I fix it, we got all these ships that are 30 miles offshore. Send them 200 miles offshore. Nobody will notice. I'm a supply chain guru. I learned that at McKinsey. I mean, you go from there. He's messed that up. And then to say this is a new type of infrastructure bill. that we're doing here. It's not your traditional bridges. Why are we going to Pittsburgh, boss? It's not your traditional, just putting up new roads and bridges. We're going to have soft common sense programs like
What?
we're going to have more cameras
Oh,
that are going to take pictures of everything.
speeding cameras.
Speeding cameras. And our goal is to turn the number of vehicle deaths to zero.
Well,
I mean, it's just absurd. It's like saying my goal in life, my next 10 years, is I want to win 40 major golf titles by not playing in any tournament. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
no, that's a good idea.
By not playing in any
Yeah,
tournament, just you get the.
Can't lose, Charles. So this caught my attention because Boot Edge, he's saying, oh, we're going to bring car fatalities down by having these cameras everywhere. Now, the reason this caught my attention was because I don't think this was on a show. I think this was at dinner with Joe Arpaio, said that he doesn't even like speed radar guns because what he's saying is it takes the police work out of policing in that they're just sitting there and a machine says, okay, give that person a ticket. Whereas according to Joe Arpaio, the process of, being a cop and seeing who's speeding and slowing them down and questioning them, he said that like every major arrest that they've had of some, whatever, it's a speeding stop that leads to they smell drugs in the car or there's some blood in the car or a weapon in the car and it leads to arresting somebody important. So the more we rely on these kind of automated systems to just give people who are speeding, which is frankly nowhere near as bad as somebody dead in the trunk or drugs and guns in the car, we're moving away from effective police work.
Well, I mean, here's a guy who, what has he ever actually done in his life?
Breastfeeding.
Right? He worked at McKinsey, getting paid to come up with clever ideas that somebody else will pay for coming up with a new system to do something or other. I mean, that's the last thing we need right now. What we need right now is that knuckleheads who have opened up the border. We should have a program. Okay, this is what we're going to do. All of the people every night now, the people who are streaming across the border who are apprehended, we're going to put them in the community where Ron Klain lives, in the community where Pete Buttigieg lives, where Joe Biden lives, and see how long it takes for some of these people who are just innocent children, aged 18 to 25, only male,
Right.
before one of them does something horrific. Joe comes stumbling down the stairs looking for some ice cream at 3 o'clock in the morning or something, and he finds 8 Afghani refugees sitting in his kitchen, cooking a chicken, burning up his rug. I mean, this is a team. I mean,
It's an open flame chicken on the...
That's my Persian carpet.
I like
but
that.
the two of these guys, I mean, it's really amazing. And we didn't even pick in this one on Monica Harris. I mean, this is a collection of dunderheads. And it's interesting to see that, I know Zero Hedge is not exactly impartial, but I find their reporting interesting, particularly because most often they'll summarize a report and give you a quick link to the underlying data. So you get, this is typical. You look at this guy and you're saying, dude, did that guy just die? One of these game show hosts who
Alex Trebek?
Alex Trebek. Put this guy, Wheel of Misfortune.
Yeah.
He'd be probably good at that, maybe.
It was Jeopardy was the Alex Trebek.
Well, no, really?
Oh, did Pat Sajak die?
I don't know. I don't know who Alex Trebek is exactly. So
He's the Jeopardy host.
Jeopardy. Okay, yeah, well, Jeopardy.
He's putting us in jeopardy.
Exactly.
Pete Buttigieg. Look at, he's always smiling like he's actually doing anything.
I mean, it's pathetic.
Shipping backlogs. Unbelievable.
And one needs to remember as well in this country that a very high percentage of activity in transportation is run successfully by the private sector. I mean, Delta Airlines and United Airlines and all these other airlines are publicly traded companies. UPS is publicly traded. Federal Express is publicly traded. Most of the rails are. The only railroad that sucks is Amtrak. And who was on Amtrak's board?
It's expensive too.
Hunter Biden.
Yeah, it's there is some kind of government control over Amtrak, isn't there? Like it's somehow
It's like a
not.
quasi-government thing. But
Why do they let that?
I don't know. Well, it's because, as the experts I know explained, that in this country, if you want to take the private property that you would need to set up a new rail corridor, it's a lengthy process. It's very expensive, prone to delay. It's not clear that you're actually going to get the right of way that you need or the ability to expand the stuff. And in contrast, it's a lot simpler to get a car. Right. And just if you want to leave at 2 o'clock in the morning to go somewhere, you can do that. You don't have to get to the train station, get through the bum walk in front of and inside these rail stations, particularly here in New York. You just get in your car and you try to get out of town without getting shot.
Hmm. There was some kind of backlash with the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol,
right,
as well.
Yeah,
that was on Zero Hedge, or I'm looking for it right now.
Yeah, what it was is that idiot Mayorkas, who's the Department of Homeland Insecurity, they've changed the name, was talking to the border agents. And they were furious at him. I mean, it's one thing
because they're releasing criminals into the country.
Yeah, as am I. I mean, it's just this is a very, very stupid and dangerous program. Maria Bartiromo had Peter Schweitzer on and John Ratcliffe, and asking whether what's going on under Biden is treason. I mean, you're kowtowing. You're in hock. The family's in hock to the Chinese Communist Party and other foreign governments. They are inducing insecurity and rising rates of crime around the country.
Protecting the Ukrainian border while abandoning the U.S. border.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It's just terrible.
I mean, why don't we take the fence down around the White House?
No, they'd put the fence up.
I'm just saying, why don't we take it back down and take the security away from the 2 mansions in Delaware? Not because I want to see harm come to the president, but I mean, people who live this, I don't know what Mayorkas's background is, but people who jet in, probably on a private plane, to the front lines of a disaster created by these people should be listening to the frontline people. I mean, that's the lesson of many failed military experiments, when the generals sit back in comfort and start saying, why don't you go over and jump over this hill and just get it done. I mean, I don't care how many of you die, just get it done. I got to have another. Stuart, could I have another Bloody Mary, please? That's what these people are doing. And we're seeing just tragedy after tragedy in places that are prone to tragedy. There was some angelic girl, 8-year-old girl who fled Mexico and was shot to death by a gangbanger in Chicago, I think.
Oh my God!
So
why are they shooting little kids?
You get in the way. I mean, I think you're living in a tough part of town, and the gunfire. Handguns are notoriously inaccurate. And
really?
Yeah, and so the bullets go everywhere, and unfortunately,
I think the morons shooting them are notoriously inaccurate.
Right.
I don't know. I can't find this thing, but it was like a leaked video of a meeting with
I think it's on Rantingly.
Yeah, I'm looking on there, and I can't seem to find it. Maybe it's been pushed down. If I click more, yeah, there we go. But there's a lot going on. Justin Trudeau went into hiding.
And that was a strong move, right? I mean, you get that guy. First of all, the picture of him at the Indian wedding with his family. I mean, I actually went
with
to
like the Halloween costume.
Well, I did that once, but no pictures were allowed.
And it was also probably first of
all,
all,
it was in India, in my case. But yeah, I went over there for a wedding once.
But you're not a head of state, and if it's an inside joke with friends, you don't really have the kind of considerations that.
Right, but so this guy he's now, because he's been prime minister for a number of years, I don't know how many, he's probably one of the longest serving heads of the major countries at this point. And he's going to say, the first move is to say, this is just a fringe element. This is a tiny minority of the country. We'll see about that. We'll see how many of these people stay and how long they stay and what their impact is. 6 years, 87
He's
days.
the longest prime minister of Canada, it looks like.
Longer than John Diefenbaker? Never heard of him.
Isn't he? Is that Canada?
Well, I don't know. But it would seem to say so. List of prime ministers of
Why is he
Canada by
10?
time in office.
Oh, I guess he's the 10th longest. I don't know.
Right, but you're just looking at Canada. I'm saying of the current heads of state, how many have been in office for more than 6 years?
Would you need to have an idiotic haircut to get elected? Is that part of it?
And the plaid to go with it.
Is this guy a Trudeau as well? Who is this?
William Lyon Mackenzie King, never heard of him.
Never heard of him either.
Prime Minister of Canada for 21 years.
So Trudeau's got quite a while to go.
Pierre Trudeau was the other one there. So you had some questions that I dodged, and I said we'd go back to them. Patrice
Right.
Cullors.
That's what we wanted to discuss. So she has purchased, well, through her wife, this mansion in Canada, and they're very focused on the fact that it was purchased through a charity. I'm more interested in the fact that this is the former headquarters of the Canadian Communist Party, which Pierre Trudeau was the head of at one point.
Well, so we were jumping all over Black Lives Matter 2 years ago, in May of 2020, when the protests erupted, because I don't care whether you wrap yourself in trying to help black people or wrap yourself in trying to help Africa or in India or fighting AIDS or whatever it is. If you're going to do it in the guise of charity, you fucking well better fill out the paperwork, and you shouldn't steal money from a charity. And the fact that the mainstream press is jumped all over Donald Trump for the Trump Foundation for relatively small infractions, but infractions nonetheless that should have been dealt with. And he paid large fines. He paid a more than $20 million fine, I think, for Trump University, and he paid a couple million, I think, for the other one. You can't let Act Blue funnel money through somebody who was a felon. It was somebody who's a felon who's vice chair, Susan Rosenberg.
Yeah.
And funnel that money ostensibly towards something called Black Lives Matter Global Foundation Network, which, as far as I can tell, has never existed. You can't do that, and it's just when you and I've never heard of.
That's what I was about to look up right now.
M4BJ, surprising name.
Money for,
but not something they would be terribly interested, I don't think. But you can't. I mean, we have the Bill de Blasio's wife walking off with maybe $800 million. I mean, Al Sharpton, a tax cheat, walking off with all kinds of money. This is not behavior. And then you put poor Corrine Brown.
what happened to her?
She got out because of COVID.
But I mean, we haven't heard anything about her since then.
I think she's just done with it.
Laying low.
Yeah, I think she was in and out. But the point is, you go after her for $1 million, but you're going to let these people steal in these dimensions. And more to the point, you're going to let the corporations virtue signal the way they were. So,
Right.
We're for Black Lives Matter. We're supporting Black Lives Matter. You've got to let our employees wear Black Lives Matter shirts, or we're going to have a temper tantrum.
There's a lawsuit going on with Whole Foods that they wanted to wear Black Lives Matter masks, and Whole Foods said, "Get out of here with that."
Yeah.
And they got pissed.
Right. And so this is really, Canada helps M4BJ. Probably, it is registered, it says.
But
See, these are the two prongs of most of the thing. You've got to get a not-for-profit business set up, and there's one place to look for that, and then you've got to get it registered with the appropriate bureau.
so, but I mean, have we ever looked at one in Canada before? How do we find this?
Clinton Health Access, we've looked at...
But I just looked on ProPublica that didn't know anything about
yeah,
this.
because that only deals with American.
So how do we find this?
Well, I would try M4BJ. I'd just Google it and try with annual report and see what you get. The Clinton Foundation was registered briefly and unlawfully in Canada. Well, I do. What did you search for? Yeah. Let's do this another time, Jason,
Okay,
because
sure.
I haven't really prepared to look into M4PJ.
But they're doing something screwy there, and I still feel like most of those news stories aren't really hitting on the right thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea that the crime is spiraling out of control and afflicting, frankly, African Americans disproportionately. I mean, crime victims are disproportionately
Yes.
African American, and you get these muddy-headed supposed liberals, supposed progressives saying that the solution here is to defund the police.
So stupid.
And people who live in these neighborhoods are saying that's not the solution. The solution is for you to shut your fucking pie hole and stop spewing this garbage, this insane garbage that's getting our kids killed.
There was the widow of
Rivera.
one of these, I guess Rivera, Detective Rivera, who was killed. She delivered a heart-wrenching speech, and then there was something I saw where it said they cut her off on one of these mainstream news outlets, cut off her speech while she was talking about how it's the district attorney's fault,
Right.
which I agree with.
Right. Well, and I thought you were going to talk about then some liberal or some crazy person.
Oh, that actress put a video saying, like, why do they got to close all the streets? They probably killed that cop because he wasn't doing his job properly. So they fired her, which was good, but the thing that was so troubling about that, Charles, is that you'd meet that person in the street and think she was normal. And she's crazy. She thinks that people should be killing cops and that you can't block up the street just because somebody got murdered.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
It's not good. So there is, if you want to go to Dinesh there, I watched this this teaser, and it's really something. What they argue they have done is they have somehow used cell phone technology to capture images of people who were illegally planting ballots during the 2020 election, and then to prove that they did what they said they would do, they would take pictures of themselves so that they could then be paid.
Wow.
And that's on this documentary.
How did he get them?
I don't know. I guess you have to watch this. It's called 2,000 Mules, the documentary. But
Wow.
But I think I don't, know exactly what happened. But look at this.
Doesn't look too secure.
Yeah. Well, and we'll watch the movie now. Dinesh D'Souza is a very controversial person. They went hard after him for an election law violation. He paid I don't know whether he went to jail.
He did.
To go to jail, okay, and paid a fine.
Wasn't he pardoned? Did Trump pardon him?
I think he might have. And the point is, what we're settling for in this country is the notion that if you're a Republican or a conservative and you get in power, that you're going to abide by the Constitution and you're going to treat your opponents gingerly, and you're not going to go aggressively after them. But if the progressives get in power, there's no tolerance for anybody. We're going to pack the Supreme Court. We're going to target and silence, or we're going to abusively prosecute people. That's not okay.
What about this new practice of saying, Charles is retiring?
Yeah.
You're like, I am?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, now you are. And then the guy's like, wait a minute. No, I'm not. Because they did that to...
Breyer.
Was it Bayer? What's his
Breyer,
name? Breyer. And then also Tom Brady, apparently. Anybody with B is retiring. Like it or not.
Biden
is retiring. I am?
Buttigieg.
Yeah.
You
it's almost
planned
like
this.
if we could do the Jedi mind trick on Joe Biden. It's like, well, Joe, happy retirement. Oh.
Do I get a watch?
Yeah. It's like you could do it. He's out. Forget the 25th Amendment. Just use the Jedi mind trick.
Exactly.
No need.
Exactly.
So Dinesh has the movie coming out. But that reminds me also, Charles. So last night at the Trump rally in Texas, he again called out Mike Lindell. So Trump has got Mike Lindell in his camp, and this emboldened some idiot with a fake name on Rumble to put a comment in there like, oh, you're constantly disparaging Mike Lindell. He's a much better guy than you. Look, I don't care. People can have whatever opinion they want about me or Mike Lindell. I'm not disparaging Mike Lindell because I have some personal issue with Mike Lindell. I don't care what Mike Lindell thinks about me or says to me on the phone. The issue I have with Mike Lindell is when I called to tell him that a specific piece of evidence that he had was completely wrong. Not only did he not want to hear about it, he acted like a maniac and hung up the phone.
Right.
You and I have identified various things he's done throughout his career that don't seem to be legitimate business as far as how his charities go. There were these allegations of domestic abuse. He broke his ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend's leg. So he's an abusive guy who seems to be abusing a charity, who is promoting fake information. And again, everyone's going to look at whatever happens. There was something Trump mentioned where something happened in Pennsylvania. Do you know what that was? Whatever it is.
No, I know what it was.
What was
so
it?
there was a court decision that said that the law that they practice that they tried to put in allowing ballot harvesting with no excuse was unconstitutional. And that being unconstitutional, that means that had it been found unconstitutional before the election, the resident would have gotten 2 million fewer votes and likely would have lost Pennsylvania.
Probably too late to do anything about that. But the problem is, maniacs who like pillow codes will say, oh, you see, Mike Lindell was right. And my response to that is no. Mike Lindell did not bring that lawsuit that found the changing of the law to be unconstitutional. I'm sure it was some opposition in the state legislature that brought that about. Mike Lindell was bringing forward information in lawsuits that, in my opinion, were intended to make this whole effort look like it's run by crackhead morons, and he succeeded in that.
Right. Well, my issue with my pillow, when I watch those ads, one of my brothers has trouble sleeping, and I said, why don't you get a My Pillow? Because it just sounds innocent enough, you know. He probably looked at me. And that I filed that away until Mike's, I call him Mike Swindell, came back into focus. I happened to go over to one of these big box stores, and I saw this package of what looked exactly like a My Pillow, but it wasn't a My Pillow. And I forget whether it was $12.99 or $16.99, and I thought, this is a lot less than a My Pillow. And that's when I realized I was getting two for the price. And suddenly I said, now, wait a minute. If I could go to a big box store and immediately get two pillows for less than one of these My Pillows, what's the business argument? Is this just somebody who figured out that, you know, people are sitting there with not much to do watching Fox News and watch the other things, and you're going to get some percentage of all your viewers are going to buy anything you put out there, which is why, you know, you see the ads that are there. There's the selection of ads now on Fox in particular is just atrocious. Dupuytren's contracture, which is something with your hand, and bent crank disease, Peyronie's disease, another one, all these other kind of things, and getting the mood pills and My Pillow and it's just, I told this to some high-level people at Fox in 15 and 16. I said, you know, you really need to make it tougher to advertise on Fox.
Well, it makes them look crappy to have all these low-end ads there, but I want to show you something else, Charles. So Mike Lindell is just part of the problem. And by the way, you know, criticizing the quality or the price of his product, I'm not even concerned about that, because to some extent that becomes like, you know, personal choice, etc. Where did this thing go? Here it is. Okay. So this is Jo. She's on Instagram, right? Everybody knows Jo. She's with the New York Freedom Fighters.
Is that Prince Harry?
No. But there's another ginger moron in this picture. Do you see him lurking in the corner there? Oh, Patrick Byrne. What's he doing there?
That's interesting.
So there's some money behind these events, and it's two idiots who, when I ask them, why are you promoting this liar, Mary Fanning, instead of saying, well, first of all, there's no need to call her a liar. Let me explain to you what she's done that's valuable. I could understand how somebody might have that point of view. She did this and that over here. Let's forget about that for now, but she's doing this, she's doing that. There's a reasonable conversation that could have been had with me about what I might not have understood about this situation, but that is not what occurred. On 3 separate occasions, when I tried to let this guy, Mike Lindell, and the public at large know that this hammer and scorecard as some kind of an argument for the election was bad evidence, that was only going to hurt this effort, instead of saying, help us understand what it is you're trying to tell us, because we think it's important, and if you know something that we don't know, we'd like to know it. Instead of saying that, which in my view, sensible, reasonable people would do, this jackass assaulted me, Mike Lindell hung up the phone on me, and Band.video kicked Crowdsource the Truth off of their video service with no warning, no chance for appeal, and
Tolerant world we live in.
it was not Alex Jones who made that decision, from what I've heard. So I'm not cracking on Alex Jones. I'm just saying there's something going on, and the Pillow Code and this moron have something to do with it.
Right. Well, if you're back on Trump and the rally, I mean, he shouldn't waste any time with Swindell, and
It's too late. He's promoting him.
Well-
Two rallies in a row now.
well, I don't know. I mean, it's too late. I mean, he started on the first campaign. He announced it in June of 15. So he's already 18 months before that right now.
Well, it's not too late to run for president. It's just too. This is what I wanted to ask you when I was watching this last night. If there were one failing of the Trump presidency that was his really biggest error, what would you, Charles, say it was?
Trying to run the presidency like a family business.
So essentially, the people he surrounded himself with.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. He's doing it again. He's surrounding himself with low-quality people, and it's not going to work well.
Yeah. And I mean, the other problem, of course, is his age. And
Well, but that would be a new problem for a second term. That would be a different problem, and I agree with you. How old will Trump be in 2024?
well, is he 75 now? In 2022 or 74? Yeah, the real question is, how old will he be on January 20th, 2025?
Why is it giving me Trump Jr.? Donald Trump, 1946, he was born, so he's
70.
it's June, right? 75, yeah.
70. He is already 75?
He's 75 today.
He'll be 76 in June, and then 3 years after, he'll be 79.
It's too old to run for president.
Well, same age as Biden, and I think I got nothing against old people, particularly as I age, but there's a good thing. There are things that are sensible for older people to do, and things that are not so sensible.
You want to go skydiving later, Charles?
Yeah, of course. I don't need a shoot.
Bungee jump. We could do some parkour just from the roof of this building.
Yeah, well, let's see. Why don't we parasail off the roof
Yeah.
rather than walk home, so I avoid the potholes.
You sure?
Yeah, let's do
You
that.
could hang glide from here
Why not?
to the West Village.
No problem. Right,
totally
directly
safe.
into my apartment window.
Totally safe and effective. Hang gliders work, Charles. Take one.
And they're sustainable.
You better take one, or
exactly.
you're fired.
That's right.
Hang gliders do work.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have other stories to look at here,
Yeah.
Charles. George Bush talked himself into, what is this talking about?
All right, so this is something that we have talked about in the past, but when we think about the standard pass that presidents get, the standard storyline is, well, look, you're going to do this, you're not going to make very much in the way of a salary while you're president, so you're really sacrificing for the nation.
Right.
Bullshit. I mean, going back, Reagan actually was, I think before Reagan, Carter, I don't think got much of anything after being president. People were like,
A bologna sandwich wrapped in yesterday's newspaper.
I'll pay you. Could you take the garbage out? I'll pay you nothing. But anyway, Reagan's accepting of the home in Bel Air, which a bunch of his rich friends out there said, look, you can't go from the White House to just any old place. We bought this mansion for you in Bel Air. We'll pay the gift taxes, and here it is. That he should not have taken. But he did.
Don't you then have to pay the gift tax on the gift tax payment?
No.
Because you gifted it to him.
I don't know how that one works, but anyway, they figured out a way to just give him the house. And then he accepted a speaking fee of about $1 million in 1989, that's a lot of money in 1989, or today equivalent. And that I think at the time was one of the highest payments that an ex-president had ever gotten for anything. And then George H.W. Bush, when he left, if you go down the bottom of this, the reason I wanted to put it up is it has, here we go, just a list of the what people were getting. This is articles from 1999. Schwarzkopf was getting, these are pounds, 40,000 to 70,000. This is after, following the Gulf War victory.
Wow.
I actually went to an event where he spoke, and it was just, I had to leave the room.
It's boring.
No, he was speaking at the foghorn level. He just got up there and just yelling and screaming, I'm a general, I'm going to kill people. And like,
Wow.
I've had enough of this.
He's dead, isn't he,
He's
Schwarzkopf?
still very much dead, as is Margaret Thatcher. But you look at these levels. I mean, Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister.
Kissinger's only getting 25 grand.
I understand he's overpaid for that. This is pounds, so you multiply by 1.5 roughly. Former general, former prime minister, leader of a country,
Fat guy.
criminal. John, former prime minister, probably a criminal. Former president's pretty low down here.
That's crazy.
Why would so George Bush his going rate was $100,000, and he took a discount, put it into this global crossing stock, and in this period, I think he did the speech in '98, and global crossing stock went way up in value very, very quickly, and so the proceeds of, call it 60 to 80,000 American dollars that he got in 1998 quickly turned into $15 million. And again, this is the kind of stuff that Peter Schweitzer has been talking about. If I go to you and I say to you, Jason, look, I know you don't like maps.
I got no problem with maps.
No, I mean like antique maps from the 15 and 1600s. I don't see any on your walls. It doesn't seem to be something that you're particularly into.
It's mostly foam on the walls. I
wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to say anything.
Foam maps I might like.
But so let's say you decide suddenly you become the likely next president of the United States, and I say to Jason, look, this is a trivial thing I'm going to give you. It's just this map here, and it's a map of where your family was from in England or something like that. And here's the county and this and that. You don't have to worry about it. It's just $100, $200. The frame is more valuable than the map. But then
that's an okay gift, isn't it?
Well, then the trick is, though, that somebody, not me, will go and say, Charles didn't understand what he was giving you. That's the only copy in existence of that map. And while in theory it's worth $100, it's like, currency. If you have a misstruck penny or nickel or dime, and there's only one of them over 100 million versions, that dime is worth a shitload of money. Same is true with maps. Same is true to these speaking assignments and book deals and all sorts of squiggly deals that politicians should not be allowed to get involved in.
Yeah.
Right?
But isn't there also another thing, Charles, like we've spoken about Joe Biden has that pretty special Corvette that even if I had it would be worth a lot of money. Justin Trudeau has an SL Mercedes that his father was the original owner of. I mean, these are collectible cars that are kind of just the fact that those guys own them. I mean, you can't prevent somebody from buying a Corvette, but the value is going to go through the roof because they own it. So if you gave a president a map, doesn't the map become valuable because it was owned by the president?
Possibly, but it also has an intrinsic worth. And that's why, I mean, the specialty of the heart of investment banking, what I used to do, is understanding how to value complex things, be they companies, be they contracts or whatever. Your job is to go in and to figure out how much something is worth. And the answer is typically every item has a range of fair value. There are certain standards. Neither the buyer nor the seller is under duress. That's very frequently not the case. You have information. Both sides have equal access to information about this, and on and on and on. But there's a range of value, and the laws that have been crafted to protect the public from abuse of the system instead have been gamed, I would argue, to make it easier for people to purchase the influence of these people who drift into politics, who are made by design as busy as possible so they can't really focus on what's going on,
right,
prosecuting crime, dealing with charity fraud, and the like. And this whole system is only going to get reformed if we, the people, through the course of 2022, 2024, and afterwards, rise up, not in violent protests, but to go to the polls to make sure the vote counts and to throw these fucking bastards out and then prosecute them. By bastards, the one I mean who are stealing money from we the people, who are throwing obligations on this country with these stupid programs that don't make any sense. In that light, I think you might want to showcase Russell Brand's thing that you'd sent to me, or somebody had sent to me.
Yeah, this was good. The truth about Hillary Clinton. If people haven't watched this Russell Brand video, I mean, he's got 4.8 million viewers and 500,000 views on this already with the Fred Flintstone jacket. But he's going pretty hard against Hillary Clinton. And I was pleased to see that because I don't dislike Russell Brand. I think he's funny and interesting. But it's good that we've got some of these comedians who have a lot of it. Like he's got 5 million, Joe Rogan has 11 million. So when these guys say something, a lot of people hear it, and it carries weight with a demographic that is specifically not listening to other people. So I think it's pretty important when somebody like this starts to pick up the story.
And the essence of this, it's about a 15-minute watch, and I watched the whole thing, and I thought it was good. I wish he didn't speak quite as quickly as he speaks, but because it comes across as a fast-talking salesman. But the points are funny and good, very fair actually, most of them. And by the end of it, I don't think there's much of a chance of anybody who watches this video and still votes for Hillary Clinton deserves what they get. Yeah, frankly. But
he's got 440 downs, but 41,000 up. That's the opposite of Joe Biden.
Well, would Joe Biden have 500,000 views on something that he put out?
Definitely not.
Can we see? Is there a White House for the Pittsburgh speech where he?
Oh, I don't know. And I've been looking for a video. Nobody has video of that bridge collapsing, do they?
Well, we have videos of his presidency collapsing.
Right.
But just look. You could just look at this is 4,500. The President of the United States, 4,500. 4.3.
I mean, he's like getting less views than Crowdsource the Truth 5. Right. Well, here it's picking up to 11,000.
But that's more time, right? The season stuff.
Over days and days.
We're talking one day ago. Let's look at January 29th, because that's Russell Brand. 4.5, 4.3.
Oh, 900,000.
900 downs. There's a point in time where, if he talks to one of Hunter's kids, one of those kids, if they're grounded, I don't know that they are. President who?
Well, let's just see how. So CNN, 6 hours ago, Trump has 330,000 views. Yeah. CNN has more.
Look at the downs, 1 point.
Well, but it's still outweighed by the ups. This is with CNN people trying, and there's still more people, even on CNN, who like Donald Trump better than Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So is it interesting? I mean, I liked most of what he was saying because he was right. I mean, he was saying that Joe Biden leaving Afghanistan in the way that he did really harmed the United States, moving forward internationally, trying to do things like Ukraine. Who, as you said, what country would want to stand with the United States now?
Well, and why is this a fight for the United States? I mean, and why... why did Ron Klain allow this to happen, right? Why you don't try, having rushed out of Afghanistan, leaving a slave market and disaster, people selling their kids and their body organs and no food and it's cold over there. The team that did that for you now we're rushing out of Afghanistan to bring different people and put them in Ukraine. I mean, no, we're not going to do that. And even if you were trying to do that, if you thought you should do that, it's a heavy lift. And you would do that Japanese nemawashi thing, where you go and you prepare the ground properly before you'd send people. Here's the thought. I mean, I'm not a political expert or anything, but it's kind of a useful thing to have an ambassador in Ukraine, but we don't have one.
Do we not?
We don't have one.
What?
Yeah.
Why not?
Because he hasn't gotten around to trying to find somebody.
That is ridiculous.
I know. We don't have an ambassador there, but we're hearing...
Get ready to go kaflooey, or whatever he told the guy on the phone. What did he say? Get ready to get sacked.
Right.
It's like, what kind of diplomat? He's like, who is this? You said it was the president of the United States. This is some joker. He says, get ready to get sacked. Let's just evaluate the problems with that. First of all, getting sacked, it's a U.S. football term. You shouldn't even say that to somebody British.
No. Sacked means you sack a city and you raze it to the ground.
Okay, so it makes sense at least.
Yeah.
So
no, but it doesn't make sense. I mean,
but why would you say that to the guy?
We were going to go, since you brought us to Ukraine, can we use Google Earth to look at Kiev for a second?
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
What do you want to look at?
The center of there are two cathedrals or churches in the center of the main square in Kiev. But if we get some kind of aerial view so people can see what we're talking about, it's a different type of city. I wonder how many bridges there are in Kiev, actually, now that I think about it. They pronounce it Kiev, of course.
We could ask.
All right. That is not
No.
Kiev. I don't think it's... Is that the name of it, St. Sophia?
I think it is. Kiev, Ukraine. We'll find out in a minute.
Well, we can move faster than the speed of sound here.
Absolutely.
Now, see how it's... Notice that it's on the top...
Oh, we don't have 3D of Kiev.
Yeah, I don't even know if this is the one I was thinking. Yeah, maybe. There's one right there. St. Michael's. Yeah, that's it. So if we just... There's one beautiful St. Michael's, and there's another one, St. Sophia's, and they're truly spectacular. I think they were each built a long time ago. And all of this stuff up here, Museum of Jellyfish, that's interesting.
We should go there. I'd rather go to the Museum of Peanut Butter and Jellyfish.
Yeah, but these are buildings. Some of these buildings are they may already be UNESCO World, Heritage Sites or whatever. And the notion that you're going to go in as Russia and demolish this to take control of Kiev is absurd. I mean, because when you go into the history of Russia, I'm no expert on it, but I've read about it, that the Russian nation was really a merger or coming together of a government whose seat was in Kiev called Kiev. First thing was Kievan Rus, right? So the last thing you'd want to do to
destroy that
is
history.
Destroy that history, because you're going to piss off a lot of Russian people. Forget about the Ukrainians. You're going to piss off about a lot of Russian people. So it's a boneheaded theory that Putin is about to come in and sack Kiev. And I think it was the president or prime minister of Ukraine. It was a comedian, I believe.
Yeah.
He said,
Zelensky.
let's just calm down, okay? You're safer in Kiev than you are in Los Angeles.
Oh, that was the foreign minister. Who
was
said
the foreign
that.
minister?
Yeah.
You're safer in Kiev than you are in Los Angeles, and that's fair. But you're probably safer in Kiev than you are in Washington, D.C.
I'm sure.
Or certainly than New York City.
Yahoo News, which has got Izakov, who had a lot to do with Russiagate, is saying that Ukraine's president told Biden to calm down.
Yeah, and in addition, you have, it was the playbook for Iraq. It was the same freaking playbook. You have the UK first saying, our sources are telling us that Putin is going to, and right away then Joe Biden says, well, if the UK says that, of course we're going to trust them. That worked so well for us in Iraq. So Richard Dearlove was absolutely 100% wrong on that. But did Joe Biden favor going into Iraq? I think he did.
I don't know.
I think he did. But anyway, it's just, I hope we don't end up going in to Ukraine at this stage. It was such
They're gonna.
Well, I don't know. The other thing that's interesting, that is sobering rather, I should say, whereas Kyiv is not a likely place to be attacked first. Kharkiv, on the other hand, Kharkiv, and maybe we should put that in the...
I've lost the Kharkiv.
Kharkiv.
Biden's Iraq. I'm trying to keep up with the questions here.
Oh, okay.
Leading up to the vote in a speech in the knees of the Congress. 11 years during which he tried containment. Well, I don't know.
Biden's speech prior to the vote. Here you go. He vote for the resolution, so he was for it.
Yeah. He's on the wrong side of everything for as long as time has existed. So, okay, then you just asked for something else.
Kharkiv, Kharkiv, in Google Earth. There's no C.
Oh, Google Earth.
Airport.
Do we see it here?
Yeah, city in Ukraine. And airport, here you go.
This?
Yeah. Well, that's a hotel, I think.
This is it.
Here, Kharkiv International Airport.
Oops, I think it's going to take us there. Let's see. Oh, it's far away.
Well, it's not that far, but it should show the airport from, Kharkiv International Airport. There you go. Not the terminal. But
No?
the whole, if you could go that way, you'll see. It's a pretty big airport.
It's a huge runway.
Yeah, and this, in Soviet Union days, was one of the primary airports for the long-range strategic bombers were based here, or could be staged from here. And I've been to Kharkiv several times, and the airport is when I last there was in maybe 2012 or 11, and the airport was hardly, the terminal was kind of small, but the runway was gigantic.
Yeah.
And I could understand why the Russians might say, let's take, unlike the United States where we say, Bagram Air Force Base, why would we want that? Let's just, let's leave all the valuable stuff we can there. We don't want to fly it out of there. Let's just
Trump
leave it
said
there.
China's controlling it now.
Is that right?
That's what he
Kharkiv?
said. I don't know if it's true or not, but it certainly seems like a logical. He said that the Taliban have become the largest arms dealers in the world, selling all of our stuff.
That's good. Good job. Bill.
And
does Hunter get a taste of that?
that China's going to take over that base.
Does Hunter get a slice? Did Hunter organize that deal,
I don't even
maybe?
think he knows what's going on. Yeah. He's just getting a taste of, I don't know, what was he doing? Some sort of ketamine treatment to try to get off of the heroin or whatever,
He's
crack.
smoking Parmesan cheese, last I heard.
I mean, this is like the Daffy Duck episode where he calls for a cat to get rid of the mouse, and then they call for a dog to get rid of the cat, and then a lion to get rid of the dog, and an elephant to get rid of the lion, and then a mouse to get rid of the elephant. Yeah. So just stick with the crack. Okay, so
the other thing, just to highlight, the Saturday Night Live, I watched all of this. It's not, it goes on a little bit too long, but it's, the guy playing Biden is pretty funny. And this is one of these things where the comedians get together in a room as a guest, and they think it's really, really funny, and they don't want to cut it.
It doesn't play that well.
Well, it played pretty well, but I mean, it's just like your thing. You look at it and you say, all right, you're not getting 8 minutes, you're getting 5.5 minutes.
Right.
I don't want to take anything out. Okay, I'll start taking stuff out. But it's pretty funny. And as I think I said a while back, not knowing that they'd actually go here, I said if Saturday Night Live had honest people in the editors, and they were really trying to make money, you'd have to make fun of the Biden. There's just too much material here to leave it alone. And sure enough, every week now, they're, not because I said it, but every week they are savaging, frankly, Biden.
Well, he deserves it. He's a pretty big idiot.
He's a savage. That's the bridge we've done.
The bridges we've already got. Oh, no, this is what I wanted to ask you about this infrastructure visit, Charles. I mean, the thing is a bridge, right? Aren't there traffic cameras on it and whatnot? I haven't seen one. I've been looking, and I haven't seen one piece of video of the actual collapse. I mean, a lot of people have video dash cams in the car now. Nobody has video of the moment this thing collapsed. It's a little weird. And it certainly seems like from Biden's standpoint, this only emphasizes his, what he was going to make a speech about, that the infrastructure is collapsing. I mean, if you're pro-Biden, you're going to say, oh, you see, he got there just in the nick of time.
If you're pro-Biden, you're going to say, give me another beer.
Yeah.
You're not thinking clearly. But no, this is, again, I would go on the side of the narrative that I see in the last 2 months has been, or really since August 15th, is that Biden's credibility and poll numbers are collapsing and the Democratic Party's prospects are collapsing, and to decide to go make an issue of this bill that's really not about fixing bridges, the one that was passed, the $1.2 trillion, has got all these crazy programs that have nothing to do with infrastructure. Some estimate that it's maybe 15% traditional infrastructure and 85% AOC bullshit, you wouldn't let the guy go to Pittsburgh. And you're right. I mean,
he's about to have a war, and he's like, let's go to Pittsburgh. Wait a minute, dude.
there are more bridges in Pittsburgh than anywhere else in what's left of the civilized
Incorrect.
world.
Disinformation. He should be erased from YouTube.
It's true. He's spreading misinformation. Well, it might be a signal that he's about to bomb Hamburg, Amsterdam, and New York City, leaving only Pittsburgh. Then he'd be right. We got to fix this.
No, I think what he should do is that he should get rid of all of his Joni Mitchell CDs now as a result of Pittsburgh not having the most bridges. Unless those other cities destroy their bridges, he's getting rid of all of his Neil Young albums.
I'm gonna notify Spotify that I'm gonna deny them the authority to put my RCA record on. I was one of many.
Chorus album of
Berkshire
Christmas
Boy
song?
Choir.
Actually, Charles, I signed up for Spotify. I had so many different things that I'm like, when Joe Rogan went to Spotify, I was like, forget it. I'll just watch the snippets on YouTube. But then he's had a bunch of interviews since then where it's like, all right, I got to go watch that. So I downloaded Spotify. But I was like, why do I want to pay for it if I can watch Joe Rogan for free? I don't understand their business model. So I'm watching Joe Rogan, and I paid. I got a $10 or $9.99 a month or whatever, just because.
In solidarity.
Yeah, because look, I like Neil Young music. I don't know Neil Young, and the more I begin to evaluate him, I don't like him, and it's starting to make me not like his music. And the problem is, Joe Rogan could say black and Neil Young could say white, but the second Neil Young says, no, you can't have Joe Rogan on there because I disagree with him, so I'm going to take my stuff and go away. He's a fascist. You can't have any disagreement. Why doesn't he just come out and say, I'm Neil Young, I'm famous, I don't like Joe Rogan, and here's what I think about it, and people would be listening to him. He could go on Joe Rogan and talk to him, or every other talk show. It's
a crazy thing. It's like me going to my local Christie's and say, I come in here every day, and I don't like to see broccoli in the vegetable aisle.
Yeah.
You're going to have to take that broccoli out, or I'm not going to buy groceries.
No, it's worse than that. It's as if the person who delivered all vegetables, or what's the most popular thing in the store, said if you don't get rid of that, you're not going to have any carrots or whatever.
Exactly.
Wait a minute.
That's true. Yeah.
What do carrots have to do with this?
Beer versus broccoli or something like that.
But Neil Young, this is disgraceful. And this is going to become his legacy. All this, because you know what I was also thinking about? All these 1970 hippies, he's a hippie crit. Because he's supposed to be, screw the man and,
right.
Revolution and freedom and rocking in the free world. No, he is probably a drug-addled, stinky loser who, and we also have to talk about this deal that he had with there's some kind of hedge fund sort of thing
right.
that's buying up all this music that had $1 billion infused from BlackRock.
I'll have to look into that.
I told you about it the other day.
Yeah, but we didn't have the name.
What was it called?
I would also like to spend a little bit of time going through some
Sure.
new stuff on the Clinton Foundation, if that's okay. But you tell me which way you want to go.
This.
Oh, okay, good. So what I would like to do is I would like to start by, just before we look at details, understand that Letitia James and the district attorney in Manhattan, Letitia James being the Attorney General, probably Merrick Garland, probably the IRS, are jumping all over Trump for a foundation. Neither the Trump Foundation nor the Trump University were what's called a public charity. A public charity is where unrelated people who are not engaged in politics, who are not running the thing for private gain or knurement, decide that they can stand in the shoes of government and perform certain narrow functions. Not all charities can be public charities. And in the case of the Clinton Foundation, the narrow purpose that they were chartered as a public charity was to be a library and a research facility in Little Rock. It wasn't
to sell pharmaceuticals.
No, not to do any of that. All right, so in the case of Trump, we jump all over Trump for he's put his personal money into a charity, didn't run it properly, has already paid a bunch of fines, has agreed to wind both of them down. We jump on Trump, but for the carpetbagging Clintons, we allow them to come in and destroy the relationship of the Clinton Library with the National Archives in one fell swoop, starting by November 17th, November 18th, 2004. Now, if you have that National Archives thing, is that on the one page of links?
Oh, yeah. This thing?
Yeah. Yes. No. Yeah, that thing. Yeah. All right. So this is the agreement, purports to be the agreement that defines the relationship between the National Archives and something referred to here as the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. On the date this thing was signed, there was no entity called the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation anywhere. It had an uppercase T, and it's not an immaterial difference because if you're sloppy about this kind of, here it's uppercase in all caps, here it's lowercase. When you're sloppy about this,
it's not a title if it's a lowercase the.
Right.
It's just the word the.
Right. But the point is, this allows you to set up multiple bank accounts, one in this name, one in that name. Because if people aren't clever enough, and then it does mention further down here, slowly, yeah, William J. Clinton Presidential Library. There's no such thing. There's no such corporate entity anywhere. Okay, so we're only in the recital portion of this agreement, and it's all fucked up in the beginning. You notice that the title is William J. Clinton Presidential Library Joint Use and Transfer Agreement. You can't transfer something that doesn't exist. And here's the 99-year lease, and it has one renewal that's possible, so I call it a 200-year agreement. It says here, in furtherance of its charitable purposes, right?
It's selling pharmaceuticals.
And if we, city lease, blah, blah, blah. Here's a letter that they write, the equivalent of Ron Klain, this guy.
Rutherford, that's
Skip
the guy.
Rutherford, yeah.
Oh, no, wait. Who's the guy who wrote the letter with Dershowitz?
That's not Rutherford.
Right.
So Rutherford is the then president of uppercase the William J. Clinton Foundation. He sends a letter to the National Archives, not telling the truth about the status of the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. So the letter, we know, went by mail, and it went from Arkansas, I think, to Maryland. And so that's across state lines. These are starting to be crimes here. On the strength of these false representations made by Rutherford to NARA sends a letter to Congress.
What's NARA again?
National Archives. Sends a letter to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House compounding all these lies. And on the strength of the lies that are told, ultimately this agreement is entered into between NARA and the Clinton Foundation. And here it says, truth of the recitals. This is an interesting thing, like by agreement, you're saying that in this agreement, that left out of the sentence is, notwithstanding the fact that most of what we're saying in this agreement is wrong, we're acknowledging with NARA and agree that the matters set forth in the recitals are true and correct. Nothing else here is necessarily true, but the stuff in the recitals are true and
But it's not.
But it's not true. But you're acknowledging that it is true. There's alternative reality. I'm above the law. By this agreement.
Truth.
Yeah, I'm above the truth. And then you go down, meaning of certain terms, foundation. The term foundation means authorized officers, directors, employees, agents, and independent contractors. That would be a guy whose real name is Ira Magaziner, but I refer to him as Liar Magaziner, because everything the guy does is a lie, right? So this is not true.
It's too bad they don't have vaccine defined in here.
Well, yeah.
Then Dershowitz could say, I don't believe that.
Right. But the point is, this agreement, I don't know when it was negotiated, but it was signed by Rutherford on the 17th.
The date?
On the bottom, 17th. Well, don't go past this yet, please. Signed on the 17th of November 2004, and by NARA on the 18th, or vice versa. So it comes into effect on the 17th by the way I read the agreement. So this would appear to me to include Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative, the Economic Opportunity Initiative, the stuff in New York, these different things that Bill has done. He is not an authorized officer or a director, but he might be deemed an agent, an independent contractor, Bill Clinton. This would appear to me to sweep all of the illegal acts that Bill had been doing through the date of this agreement into the agreement, right? And
what do you mean?
Well, because it's saying that this agreement, this is not the recitals. This is the body of the agreement. saying that unless otherwise specifically noted, the foundation means all these different people or groups acting for the foundation or on its behalf. So this would include Ira Magaziner, right?
But are you allowed to do that?
Well, we'll get to paragraph 6, either A or B. Go down a little bit. You're going to have to go a number of pages down. 6. 4, 6. I think it's A. Yeah. Okay. The board of directors, if you could just stop. The board of directors, officers, and employees of the foundation will, at all times, while managing and operating the foundation, act in the best interest of the foundation. They didn't. Before signing this agreement, they illegally created this Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative beginning March 23rd, 2004. They didn't get tax exemption for that. The list of things that they did not do by November 18th, 2004 is far longer than 39 pages. Opening up subsidiaries in India and all these places with no authority, entering business development deals with the crooked Ranbaxy company when its troubles coming to light in August of 2004. So a lot of people knew there was trouble at Ranbaxy. Ranbaxy executives show up at this dedication in Little Rock. There's a book written about it, how excited they were to be included at the opening ceremony.
Is that weird?
Not weird at all. They look at this and say, we gamed the system here, man. We got Bill Clinton working for us. Buy our drugs.
Wow.
And so my point here is that NARA seems to be like the SEC. It's set up to fail. In this agreement, I don't see any, and I'm not a lawyer, but I can't find a portion of this agreement that goes through penalties. It says, if you fail to live up to the terms of this agreement, you suffer this penalty or that penalty. There's nothing in here for that. And I think this agreement was, the legal phrase is void ab initio. It was void at the very signing of it on November 18th, 2004. But if you're an accountant and you want to be in a higher level than Ernie Skirmy, which is,
not hard to do.
Yeah, you got the pile of garbage over there on 17th and 7th. It's now, the guy
It's
who
covered in
sleeps
snow.
he's under a scaffold. So he brought his garbage in under the scaffold.
Oh.
So now there's a leaning tower of garbage under a scaffold over there. That guy is probably a better accountant than Ernie Skirmy. But certainly one thing you'd want to do in putting together an audit for the Clinton Foundation is read this agreement. And you might want to reference it in your 990 filing, because this is a pretty important agreement that you've just signed, a 100-year agreement. Yeah. And if you're going to value the contribution that you made to as part of this agreement, you probably want to have, not just because I like investment bankers, because I used to be one, you'd want to have an investment banker read this agreement, look at the financials and say, what is the true state of play of the Clinton Foundation on November 18th, 2004? And then when we write the opinion, June 30th, 2005, we big AD, has anything changed? And then when we do the only real attempt at an audit, which is done January 9th, 2006, does the team that does that work, has that team gone over this and realized that this is just worse than a partial birth abortion? This is a partial birth abortion where you kill the mother and the father.
But you're talking about things you would do if you actually wanted to do this without mistakes, and these are all the things that you would not do if you want to get deliberate problems through without anybody seeing it.
Well, but my point is that you're the one who's been to the National Archives more recently. I went a long time ago, and I remember even then, I went to the one in D.C., all you had to read this disclaimer, you couldn't bring certain things back in 1970 or whenever I went.
Couldn't bring things in. I had a scanner. I literally brought a whole scanner and was scanning photos. No, I was allowed, but they said you're not allowed to take the stuff out of there. And there was a whole big thing. They made me watch a video about how it was a felony. And I've thought about that quite a lot since you and I have been doing all this work and talking about what's his name shoving the thing down his pants.
Sandy Burglar.
Yeah, when I was in there, I was like, oh, better not take anything or they'll put you in jail. that was what I was thinking, and I was like super careful, like don't accidentally like have some photo in the scanner when you leave and go to jail. But in retrospect, it was like a library with 4 people working there. You could have probably stolen 50 things and they wouldn't even know.
Right, but the point is that the books and records of a presidency may not be all that important 4 years after Bill Clinton leaves the White House. But if you're going to try to seriously assess the Clinton presidency 20 years from now, 50 years from now, you want to have some certainty that those books and records are actually the books and records of the Clinton presidency. And my opening position would be, we don't have any idea how many books and records were created by the Clinton presidency, because certainly prior to his departure from the White House, people were shredding and bleach bidding and making sure that emails and drafts and stuff disappeared. And then once they realized the enormity of the problem of because Hillary eventually might want to run, of making sure you whitewash the Clinton first 8 years, they had to gain control of this stuff and this material, and they had to have the ability to put pressure on anybody who might challenge them. And so I think, I don't know if it's effective to contact an inspector general for NARA, but I think they have a serious problem on their hands, because this agreement, you could say it's old news. This agreement runs till 2100. Okay, so
could outlast us all.
Yeah, it's going to outlast me anyway. But this is a live issue. I mean, and actually, with each passing year, I think it becomes more and more serious an issue. So we have if I haven't been able in the last 5 or 10 minutes to explain that there's a gigantic fucking problem with the underpinnings of this foundation, I won't waste any more time on the details other than to reiterate that there's a gigantic fucking problem here that needs to be dealt with. And now let's go look and see how they report about their problems. And I'll show another, if we can go back into the office, to the About Clinton Foundation.
Oh, okay. The point I was trying to get at with the lack of security at the archives is that I think that probably Clintons would know about that.
Oh, yeah. So if we go to 2004, audited financial statements. Okay, now this says, Jason, if you could either write this down or I guess you don't have a pen here.
No, I could put a note over here.
All right. This says that the direct public support, the total revenues in 2004 were 57,747,324. Okay, this is what the 990 says.
57.
747, like the plane, 324.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is important because if you're a public charity, you've got to go and you've got to demonstrate, normally, if the IRS is not crooked, you've got to demonstrate that you're broadly supported by the public. This all can't be from the Trump family or from the Clinton family or from a corporation. And you also have to show the amount of government grants. And you notice that that's line 1C, 0.
Oops.
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then let's go probably 6, 7, 8 pages in. Up. Is it that one?
You actually get pretty good detail in that view.
Yeah. This one here. Okay. So this is a schedule that goes back historically and checks to see, of course, in the case of the Clinton Foundation, it's done incorrectly, but it should check to see, are there any unusual grants? He says, do not include unusual grants. And
what makes something an unusual grant?
Unitate. You're acting as an agent for a non-governmental organization, and you're just acting as the agent of it. You don't have control of the whole thing and direct the activities. You're just doing a favor for somebody because you're set up to do for an authorized purpose that the agent, the person hiring you or employing you, has chosen to use you rather than try to do it themselves. So you would take that out, and you got to do a calculation what percentage of your revenues are actually broadly from general public. And this is, without going into the details, this is something else we'll do another time, this is all wrong. Okay, they haven't done this properly. They have not identified the large contributors. there's no support in the public domain, but there's enough information in the public domain for me to know they haven't done this correctly.
Wow.
So if we go, let's go to Nonprofit Explorer, or actually, can we go back to the Clinton Foundation? I don't know. When I tried to do it, I couldn't get. Now, see if you can get 2005. When I did it on my phone, I couldn't.
This?
Yeah, it would only let me do one. Okay, good. So you're more powerful than I am.
Wow. Computer-wise, that's probably true.
So here's this BKD letter. Now, we go down this letter. First of all, it's addressed to the board of directors of William J. Clinton Foundation, Inc. There is no board of directors, and the name of the entity here at this time is in theory, the William J. Clinton Foundation. Okay, so they've got the first line wrong and the second line wrong. Okay, and this is not supposed to be an independent accountant's report. It's supposed to be
Audit.
Consolidated statement of financial activity. So a report is kind of like high level past, Jason, I'm an interior decorator and I'm going to sell your apartment for you. I'll give you a report on what I think your apartment is worth.
Right, but it's not the official.
It'll have my stationery on it, and it'll have my signature and stuff like that, but I'm not going to go and bore into the walls of this apartment and see the structural this and that and check every appliance.
Gold in these walls, Charles.
I know, copper.
Apartment's worth millions.
Right. I do this is a cursory level examination.
You're not going to bore me with boring into the walls.
This is not compliant. This is going to independent. You need to do much more than this.
Right.
All right. But here, let's take a second on this final paragraph. In 2005, so we don't know when exactly in 2005, the foundation adopted a policy, and this is, Liar Magaziner is always the chief policy officer. Right. I'm going to adopt a policy of pretending that I'm not breaking the law. That's my policy.
Chief MOU officer.
Right. On the accrual basis of accounting. In this sentence, if you don't know accounting and you don't know what you should be looking at, it's like, I'm doing you a favor. I'm going to basically use the accrual basis of accounting. You should have been using the accrual basis of accounting from the jump, from October 23rd, 1997. Remember, accrual basis versus cash basis. Accrual basis is if somebody has promised to pay you something in respect to work for 2004 but hasn't paid it yet, you get to count that. You should count that as revenue. If you promise to pay, it's a receivable.
You know different people than I do. If they haven't paid you, don't even count on it.
No, you have a reserve. Typically, you give people. Most people will get 60 days, 30 days, 60, 90 days, whatever.
Disney takes 90.
And most big companies will screw the little
20.
companies, whatever.
Yeah.
And then equally, if you promise to pay a vendor and you haven't paid them, you've got to count that obligation. And you should, if you're going to do a construction project, which is what this is in Little Rock, you absolutely must use the accrual basis of accounting. Your contractor is going to be using it. You should be using it. You're a moron if you don't use it. And if you're borrowing money, the lender is going to insist for a construction project. Any lender is, with a
You're not tracking it accurately.
You have to track it. Because the problem with construction projects typically happens in the last 10 to 15% of the time of the project, the very end. The owner of the project is tired. The contractor's sick of the bullshit. You've been fighting about bills for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
You're sick of the contractor. He's sick of you. And
people have died.
People are about to die who complain about it. But anyway, so the first sentence is, I'm doing you a favor. I'm going to do what I should have done. And mind you, this is for the entire life of the main construction project. We have decided to use a reckless form of accounting that does not keep track of things because.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
But then we have here, previously, somebody writing this sentence, previously financial statements were prepared on the modified cash basis of accounting, which is a comprehensive basis of accounting other than accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So this is, another way to read this is, since inception, from inception on October 23rd, 1997, through December 31st, 2004, we decided, fuck you, we're not going to use accounting. We're just not going to keep track of anything. This is a ruse.
Klingon accounting.
Yeah, we got political campaigns to route through this foundation. we can't keep track of that facts. That would indict us. I mean, I wouldn't accept this letter. I wouldn't let a letter like this be issued. I would have fired the management and BKD and the trustees long ago.
My accountant is Pokemon.
Exactly. So this is a closing paragraph that is cringeworthy. It's it should tell you right away there's massive problems. So now let's go to the statement of this one here. Okay. This is the statement of activities, and notice it's not consolidated. But this says contributions in 2005, we want to write this number down, are 96,050,816. Okay?
Sorry.
96,050,816.
Got it.
Then you see that I won't ask you to write it down, but you see they have your point not being paid. A provision 110,718 would need to be netted against the 96. So let's call it 95.9 as the rate. 96,050,816 less 110,718. Just call it 96, round it, 96.9, 95.9 rather, is the net contributions for 2005, okay? Then go to the next page. Now, if you see these are what are called side captions, right? And if you're on purpose trying to make it very difficult for somebody to follow what you're doing, you have the next page with no side captions.
Oh.
So that in order to understand what's going on, you're going to have to go and take this page and make a copy of it and put it up next to the other page. And, you have to have a lot of patience to try to understand. This is what they say happened in 2004. But look at the revenue. 73552,690 in 2004, less 1871582. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, call that 70.7, right? The one net of the other. 73,552,690 less 1871582. Just round number it. Say it's like 70.7 or 71.7. Okay, remember that number, 71.7. So now what we're going to want to do. So these are in theory. This is an audit, and they should have gone and they should have checked the major sources of revenue. Ideally, what you do is you take the top 100 donations and you say, what do those add up to? And you look through the table where they're saying they have 73552,690, and you check to make sure that they actually did get in a real audit. You'll contact the major donors and say, these guys are saying that you sent them all this money. Can you confirm that you did? And if you go a step further, you'll say, can you give us the date that you sent the money? And what was
the pretend audit, Charles? It's a tiger audit.
No, real audit. You should, for an entity this big, have this type of an audit. This isn't even. I'm not even getting halfway complicated on them. You should do this the accountant should force the entity to say, please tell us every legal entity that you have around the world. What's the relationship of that legal entity to the parent? How did you organize it? What are the local laws in the countries that apply to this? Did you notify the authorities properly? Are you all that kind of stuff you should be doing? But of course, their attitude is, we got Liar Magaziner and Billy Boy Clinton on the case. No
need to do
Epstein's
that.
on this thing here. Man. We got
yeah.
Planes are expensive. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to go into New York State, NYS. I didn't ask you about that one, I'm sorry.
That's all right, we'll just get that.
And while you're trying to find it, remember I told you this public charity status is something that's very important. You've got to go, and it's 3.1. It's probably going to pop up 3.1 and then 158.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're going to hit search. And now we're going to go into the body here, and we're going to look at the report for 2006 and further down. 6. Okay.
What is that?
No Char 500 submitted.
Oh, who wrote this? It's just like
Daffy Duck.
I mean, this is somebody faxed this to the IRS. They just
No, this is New York State. This is Letitia James.
So who wrote that, though?
I don't know. But I mean, this is
She's not investigating at all.
why investigate this? I mean, you don't want to do that. Let's go after Trump.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So go back.
This is like a note from Juan's doctor.
That's like kind of note that my kids would give me when they were like 3 or 4 years old. And they just learned how to write. But
pretty bad.
So that's the first entry for 2006. Let's look at the second.
That?
You've already done that one. That's
this.
Yeah. The second. Let's see the date of this one. When did? Okay, this is in 2007, December 18th. It's Bruce Lindsay with the signature we recognize.
Yeah.
Right? December 18th, 2007. This was due by November 15th, 2007.
What's this guy doing all the time that he's late?
I don't know. But if we go, you're supposed to provide a list. This is 2006. You should have told New York State that this fundraiser that you've been using a lot since 2001 or 2 was fined in Pennsylvania. You should probably have mentioned that to New York State, but they didn't. And then the next page, I think, is a list of all the government grants. Okay,
None.
in 2006, they're saying no government grants in 2006, which is untrue. And New York State cares about this, as does California, more than other states.
That's the end of the document.
Really?
Yeah, 4 pages.
So there's no 990.
Well, it should just put a note and fax it to them.
All right, so let's go to ProPublica and get the 990 out of there. 311580204. And go to 2006. And get the 990. Let's do it the downloading maybe. And we're looking for that same Schedule A. Let me get it a little smaller. Yeah.
Schedule A?
Yeah. It's, if you do a little bit slower, that right there. Yeah. Okay, if you make it a little bigger, and okay, the number that you wrote down for 2004 is exactly the same, right? 57,747,324 is what you wrote down.
57,747,324.
Okay, there's that revenue. But the number you would have written down for 2005 that we had in the audit said that the revenue was 71.8, and here it's saying it's 89.
Seems more.
Well, the point is that they haven't explained where this revenue came from. If you don't explain who the donors are, you can't have this number be higher than the number that was in the 99.
Magically delicious.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way.
Well, they just wrote a bigger number, didn't they?
Right, it just doesn't work that way. So let's go through the similar exercise for 7 in New York State, because we only did the detour here because New York didn't have it. I think did it disappear? No.
Well, here, we'll just go back to New York.
Well, we need to go to New York State, yeah.
Yeah. Just bring it back over here. And it's 311. There we go. Search.
Yeah. And let's look at 2007. Here. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, now slowly here we see that you don't have Lindsay sign this. O'Brien McConnell's still working.
90 grand.
And here are the government grants in 2007. Now we know this to be false.
Why?
Because United is $70 million.
Oh, is it any government that's
yeah,
giving it?
It's not, and you're actually supposed to.
But maybe they say United is not the government.
That they would be wrong. And it's a very significant percentage of the total revenue of this entity. Okay, here's the 990 they have. And just look at the first page here. You'll see in government grants, they say they have no government grants. So 73 million roughly of government grants just from Unitate. We know that Australia is a donor, Norway is a donor, there are other governments are donors. So 73 1/24 is a big, it's like 60%, 65% of the revenues are from one known government grant. So accountants will look at something, good accountants will look at something, and by design, materiality is not defined. So this a material adverse change. It's meant to be a subjective combination of.
I'll know what it is when I see it.
Well, but not so you could be funny, so you could put more pressure on somebody. So even though it's a small thing, if your largest customer is 5% of your revenues and your largest customer disappears, that might be material. It might lead you to the conclusion that your largest customer has discovered there's fraud at your place, and the reason they left is something that you need to explain and whatever. So, but certainly when you talk about 73 million out of 124 million come from a government, but you've decided not to put that in the 990, that's quite material. And not report it to the state of New York, which is a state where you're directing your activities from, right? I mean, even though it's an Arkansas corporation in theory, Bill and Hillary and later the diarrhea expert are directing the affairs of this entity, this far-flung charity fraud network from New York City.
You could probably have a debate about the materiality of something that's 3, 4, or 5%. Once you get to half, I'm pretty sure it's material.
Yeah, once you get to 20%, 10%. So let's find Schedule A and see what they say about the revenues. And this Schedule A is important because if the IRS were actually engaged, they would be quite concerned, as with the National Archives, because you're representing to the National Archives that you are a public charity, which means you got to fill out Schedule A correctly, and you're not doing that. Let's see, what is this?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's good. Keep going. Yeah, down. I can tell if you give me more on this page. Aside.
This one?
No, it's the thing with multiple columns. Yeah, that one. Okay, so now we look back again. We've got the same 57,747 for 2004. This is the form for 2007. And we've got, for 2005, the same incorrect number, 89,652,565, as opposed to our 71,7. So we're not explaining how in 2005 we had revenues that aren't
accounted for.
Right. There's like, what? Where did you get these revenues? How come you have, on Schedule B, you have to list out all your important revenue. And that revenue, that doesn't sync up with this 2005 number here in the schedule. Now this does say use the cash method of accounting, which is different than the accrual method. Now, if they can't get accrual right, I doubt they're going to get cash. And it's unusual for your cash revenues to be higher than your accrual. Right? People will pledge or make a commitment to action, but they won't. You're going to have to count not a commitment to action, but a real pledge as revenue before you get the cash. So it is highly unusual, I would argue, to have cash revenue be higher than accrual. But here they're claiming it's higher, which doesn't make any sense. Then let's go to 2008, and that's where it's, for somebody like me, a numbers weenie, it's a pièce de résistance. We see in 2008, this is, they have actually, by the time they submit this form, they've signed the MOU. Look, they put this in January of 2010, so well after the signing of the MOU, effective December 12th, 2008, where they've listed out all these fancy pants government supporters going back historically, but they haven't filled New York State forms out. So we go in here in the same government form, next page, I think. You see at the top? 97,164,495, all from foreign governments. I don't think that's true, because I think they have other grants that we've seen that are from Arkansas, state of Arkansas, city of Little Rock, CDC, etc. So now suddenly they're reporting foreign government grants for 2008. But if we go to the schedule, well, first the 990 revenue page. This one. Okay, this, oh, we got to go further in. I guess they changed the format in 2008, so we've got to go to first revenue page is here. Okay, there you see that.
Redactions.
I don't know that it's important actually in this case. I just think they're empty. But there you see that same number, 97164,495, right? So a majority of their revenues are from foreign governments. And that means that likely they're acting as agents for foreign governments. Hillary Clinton's the Secretary of State. You're not supposed to be doing this, and they're married to one another, and they're not, Bill and this thing are not registered under FARA, and that's a big problem. And then we go to Schedule A further down, and we'll find something unusual happened. This one here, or this one above it. Yeah. Look at 2004. You remember that number, 57,747, that's right. But suddenly, in 2005, instead of being 89, now it's 80 million with no explanation.
Huh.
And again, this is a schedule that the IRS normally would lean very hard on, because if they were to find that you're basically acting as agent for foreign governments, you're therefore not standing in the shoes of the American government,
Right.
because
You can't be tax exempt.
you can't be tax exempt for this activity, but you're certainly not a public charity. And the significance of that is if you're a private individual and you're making donations to this public charity and you've got a big income, you can get a larger tax deduction, because this is in theory a public charity, than if it were a private foundation. And of course you get no tax deduction if it's a fraud, right?
Are you sure? Because they seem to be giving a lot.
In theory, you get no tax deduction if it's a fraud.
Wow. Well,
so again, this is probably, I don't know, our 500th broadcast or something like that. We've done a whole bunch of them since June of 2017.
17, yeah.
And we're going to keep doing them until the IRS and others do something about it. Now, there's been a fair amount of chatter, and we had that Katrina Blinova Sputnik link there. Katya, where is she? Amazing.
It's hard to see them once they're up here, right?
Yeah, Sputnik.
I had her here. No?
Maybe some jump off the page. But she's doing a tremendous amount of work. She and her whole family just got...
This is it right here.
Yeah. She is dealing with COVID, actually.
Oh, really?
She's fine.
I didn't know that.
But this is the latest piece we did, and we're going to do another one. And she is very... it's a 7-hour time difference, so 7 hours ahead. So when these news stories come out, she's on top of all these different stories. But Technofog has had a piece about Durham, and Paul Sperry at Real Clear Politics has had something about this. And I think speculation is rising that Durham is aware and concerned about not simply the election matters, but the motivation for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama to conspire, and Joe Biden to conspire to stop Trump, then to hobble Trump, and then try to get him out of there, and then prevent him from being reelected. I think one concern has to be, I'm sure there are others, but one concern has to be the magnitude of this Clinton Foundation grift. Your man, Russell Brand, very eloquently, he gets to a number of 163 billion of fraud.
Where did he get that from?
Because foreign governments, who probably not all of them should have gotten these arms contracts, while Hillary was Secretary of State, contributed to the Clinton Foundation and got contracts to purchase military equipment from American military contractors valued at $163 billion, or whatever the number is, that order of magnitude. I'm more interested in the charity fraud of Bill and people around Bill and Hillary virtue signaling, and the Clinton grifter initiative getting together, claiming to be a charity in New York when it wasn't, never was a charity and never was validly organized in New York. I'm more concerned about those grifter gatherings being used as ways to actually pay off Chelsea and Hunter and the equivalent of political family members. You go to a grifter initiative, you announce some big fun-sounding thing, you get the government of Norway to contribute money to it, and you don't tell anybody that the travel arrangements are going to be provided by Hunter and the entertainment will be provided by Epstein. I'm just making that part of it up, but
there's ways.
There's so many different ways that you could steal money from a charity, chiefly because the IRS and the Department of Justice and others have been defanged, are unwilling to look into this, I think, and also because in a real business where people are making bonuses and hoping for salary increases, et cetera, every employee in the company is trying to make sure that the revenue that is associated with the company goes into the company's books because that's what pays them the bonuses. And you've got a lot of people noticing that, hey, wait a minute, this guy who's been working on a project over here, he said he was going to get $1 million check for the company, and all we're getting is $200,000. What happened to the $800,000?
Right. Kind of want that.
But you have people checking that. If you're just giving money away,
nobody cares.
It's like, who cares? So we missed.
Well, you brought up Obama, Charles, and it causes me to think about, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but, Adam Sharp is the CEO of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. And in 2018, he gave a speech to a room full of politicians, political wannabes, or whatever. His expertise is in Twitter. And he talks about how Donald Trump had become the most effective Twitter user in the world. I think at one point Donald Trump had the most Twitter followers of anybody, didn't he?
I think, aren't there some movie stars and people like that who were hired? I don't know. But
I'm pretty sure Trump at one point, I want to find a way to check this, but I was looking today to see who's the most followed on Twitter, and I think you're going to be surprised. Look who it is.
Can he sing?
I mean, he's popular, of course, but this.
But look at this. Look at the numbers.
Seems fake to me. But look at this. Trump, even being kicked off, is still in the top 10.
Yeah. But look at the numbers who are musicians.
I mean, I get it. People all around the world are into Justin Bieber and whatever. But I find it hard to believe that more people are following Barack Obama on Twitter than Justin Bieber.
But let's see what he has to say in his feed. Maybe he's
a bunch of
jokes.
crap. Nah, he's not.
Oh my God, there's Hillary. What is this about?
On this day 13 years ago, I signed the Lily Ledbetter.
Why are all
Fair
the women
Play.
wearing red?
I don't know. It's maybe this Lily Ledbetter thing. But I find it difficult to believe that he is the most followed person on Twitter.
With this kind of bilge water. Billy Joel was the guy I was trying to remember.
What is he doing? Is he taking his stuff off of?
No. What?
Billy Joel said Taylor Swift music is comparable to the Beatles. Oh. Huh. I mean, that's the thing. People who play music, maybe they're great at playing music, but does that mean that I don't want their input on every single thing in life. I don't care what Neil Young thinks about Joe Rogan or anything else. But actually, that was something else I wanted to share with you that's kind of annoying. So Spotify now has said that they're gonna, it's Swedish, did you know that?
Mm-mm.
I didn't either. Daniel Ek responds.
Daniel Dreck.
He's the guy who founded the thing, and he's saying that they're going to put misinformation, will have content warnings, but does that mean Spotify has bowed in the face of pressure?
It's absurd.
But the thing is, they're saying that Joe Rogan has spread misinformation. Did they tell us what he said that was incorrect?
I think before you put it on Spotify, you've got to put it on CNN, MSNBC, the White House.
The warnings, you mean?
Yeah, misinformation.
I agree.
Any political speech.
Sotomayor.
Sotomayor, yeah, no.
Everything they've said has been wrong. Fauci,
Right.
Warning, dangerous content. Shut this midget up.
Yeah, put a picture of the Travelocity gnome on it.
Yeah,
You know. Well, what about do you see that this guy, Tedros, WHO
Yeah.
guy, he's siding with Neil Young.
What are you talking about?
Dangerous, that's to spread misinformation.
What does Neil Young think about that? Oh, he's tweeting about Tedros. Oh, he's blocked me. We're not able to view Tedros's tweets.
Is that right?
Yeah,
He blocked you?
I did a whole video about him, and then he blocked me.
Really?
Yeah. Hey,
Huh.
wait, we'll get it on here.
Can you do his Wikipedia?
No, hang on.
You got a workaround?
We got a tricky little thing right here.
I mean, everything. If the World Health Organization on HIV and AIDS approved generic versions of Ranbaxy drugs in 2003 that were proven. In 2003, when the World Health Organization did its rigorous and stringent testing, Ranbaxy was sitting there and saying, okay, we got to have a special room where we age the paper.
Right.
And we got to have these special, we want to send executives to go buy the branded drugs in countries, and then we're going to take the pills out of the bottle and put them in our drugs, and we'll test those and say that they test perfectly. And of course, the standard drug will have testing procedure. You're going to have some spillage, right? But their test was like a
shrinkage.
It was
like laundry.
Yeah, it was it was like the voting results coming out of Kazakhstan. Your fearless leader has won 100.00000%, 100% perfect for drugs that were adulterated, not manufactured by Ranbaxy, and circulated in Africa and in India and elsewhere, in part by the Clinton Foundation, in part by the U.S. government.
So here's what Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says. He's thanking Neil Young. Now, what's this Neil Young NYA? I'm not familiar with that.
Is that his?
He's got a lot of Neil Young handles, I guess, but he's thanking him for... They keep saying misinformation, but they don't tell us what was misinformation about it. Oh, this is the Neil Young archives. No, Neil Young has @Neil Young. So Tedros, I don't know if that's the
High
right...
confidence in him, right? He's the leader of the World Health Organization. I mean, you look into his background in Ethiopia, what happened under his watch. He is not a medical doctor. He's certainly not a medical doctor, but Dr. Tedros does not have the kind of real training that I think you should have to aspire to run an organization if you want to have an organization like the World Health Organization. And before he starts spouting off and criticizing this or that about politics or misinformation, here's a newsflash. Why don't you make sure that the health system in the country you came from, Ethiopia, actually works for its 100+ million people? It might be a start.
I hope Neil Young will remember, Charles, that he's a douche.
And what is it with, my mother was not this type of musician, but was a musician. She never wore a funny hat like this. What is it with the musicians?
Oh, that's his image.
Well, how does that help your image, that hat?
Whatever he wants his image to be, I'm fine with that. I really hate it when people try to tell other people what to do.
Right.
Other than, hey, leave me alone. There's not too much that you should really be telling other people. And for him to demand this guy is such a dick. I hope he has the most colossal failure. I mean, it's too late. He's old. His life has basically been defined at this point. Nothing's going to happen that's going to hurt him. But I think he'll be hated. His legacy will be this, that he's a jerk. First of all, he's Canadian. I don't like these people like Harry comes over and says, the First Amendment is quite ridiculous. It's like, listen, Dick, get out of here. He's crashing at Tyler Perry's house.
Is he really?
That's Tyler Perry's house. I'm finding out a lot of stuff about Meghan and Harry. Oprah asked Tyler Perry to lend them this house. It's like a $14 million house. I don't know why Tyler Perry didn't tell Oprah. Doesn't Oprah have millions of houses?
She's got a big house in Montecito.
Why doesn't she give them a house? Right. But then Meghan apparently brought in decorators.
What?
Somebody invites you over to their house, you start decorating it. That's rude.
As they say, that's nasty.
It's just rude. I don't know. Yeah. What else?
That's pretty. We've had a full plate today, Jason. A lot going on.
Well,
could be a wild week coming up here. Let's hope we don't invade
get ready to get sacked, Charles. It's a great way to start a phone call. I don't know what he had in mind, but people can follow you on Twitter.
He was thinking about hitting the sack, probably.
But that's what I mean. It's English is a second language for the guy. You tell him, get ready to get sacked. It's like, that's not diplomacy. This is like a crank call. Who is this?
That's right. Who are those people who punk
Crank
called
yankers.
The people from
Jerky
Russia?
boys.
Who?
Jerky boys and crank yankers.
No. But in addition to that, there was some.
Oh, who called Adam Schiff?
And Nancy Pelosi and
Yeah,
a bunch
you're
of
right.
people. Yeah. And then of course there's who's the guy Borat? The actor.
Well, that's Sacha Baron Cohen.
He did a bunch of that as well.
I don't care for him.
Yeah. Some of the movies were pretty funny.
Well, he's another one of these guys. He's British. He comes over here and starts criticizing our system and participating. Whatever. Get the hell out of here.
Right.
He's a jerk. I've encountered that guy in person.
Have you?
Sacha Baron Cohen. Yeah. Don't like him at all.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we'll have an interesting week. We get into February and Groundhog Day, and
Is Groundhog Day in February?
I think is it like February 2nd or something?
Man, I don't really keep track of these kind of things that much.
Sure.
But I don't doubt you, Charles.
Well, you feel free.
I'm sure it is. Well, every day is Groundhog Day now that we have COVID, because you just wake up and do the same thing again and again and again. I won't talk about the Super Mario Brothers because it causes them to like freak out and twitch and make that RV shake around. Stinks in there worse than normal, I'm sure. But people who want to help with the Counter Lawfare Fund or just like the show and want to sponsor can become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. So wait a minute. Atlas Shrugged says that Neil Young left his wife, who was dying of cancer, to be with Daryl Hannah. That's what I mean. Like, that guy is a terrible guy, if that's true. I don't want advice from him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that world of rock musicians or whatever he is, a lot of bad choices are made.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But in closing, though, the art department, once again, this is a fantastic
Thank you.
production. And let's hope in the fullness of time that we figure out some way to go back over this long litany of shows. I mean, I keep saying to you that one of the benefits, if I were trying to market this as a business, I'd be saying what we try to do here is to give you detailed analysis to get way ahead of the pack. And now that we've been doing this since June of 2017, you have a chance to go back and see when did we first start talking about this topic or that topic or another topic. And I think it's actually easier for us to do this because we don't have to go through. I know when I was going on Fox, for example, a few times, I had to go over and talk with the person, and they had lawyers listening in, and they have to be more careful, I think, in different formats. So I could understand us being regularly a week ahead, but when we're regularly 2 years ahead, or 3 years ahead, that seems to me something that's valuable. You listen to us. You could disbelieve us. You should check what we say. That's why we do it the way we do it, to give you a chance to go and look at the evidence. But then you need to understand that we may be right. We may be, months, years ahead. That doesn't mean you should act on what we say, but just prepare. If we get lucky, people will be brought to justice here. People at GE, I think, have been brought to justice, not to the full extent yet. But we haven't had a wrenching crash, the type that happened in 29 through 33, as an example. We haven't had a protracted period where people couldn't borrow money, including governments.
Is that coming?
Could well come, sure.
You reminded me of something there, Charles, that Trump said last night. He was talking about all the great things that he did, and it reminded me of a bunch of things that he did that I was like, wait a minute, that wasn't so great. Because
look at Boris Johnson. I mean...
Well, but the reason I brought this up is because Gavi is something that Trump was all behind.
He shouldn't have been.
But this is Bill Gates, and it's...
I know what it is, yeah.
So, I mean, he was talking about how all this great stuff with recognizing the Golan Heights for Israel, and I was like, well, I don't think that was so great, because actually, that's not so much for Israel as it is for Genie Energy, and it's his son-in-law who is doing all this stuff to try to help that. And the thing is, I don't know if Trump knows this or not, but that whole Genie Energy, Golan Heights, business in Syria, everything going on with Russia, Bill Browder, which Fox basically runs the defense for. So like when you were just talking now about the lawyers at Fox, I'm not so sure that they're there to make sure that you don't say something that's going to get Fox sued. I think they're there to make sure that you don't say something that goes against what Rupert Murdoch and his foundation and all the vaccines that they're investing in and all the various business interests that they have. There's something that they're trying to do on Fox. And protecting Bill Browder, which the Magnitsky Act was sponsored by Joe Biden. There's a whole lot of crap going on. And I'm not saying Trump is part of it, but if he's got Mike Lindell on that stage with him.
Well, what I would say about the vaccine idea is that when I was a young kid, I mean, who likes to get
Any
injections?
shot.
Nobody does. But I think it was common to get maybe 3 to 5 vaccinated for 3 to 5 things. I don't think it makes any sense to set up a business model where people are getting 90 shots or getting into a program where you're going to have to take the shot and you're going to have to take another shot of the same thing and a booster shot.
But wait, we're not supposed to talk about this. We got to go into the into the forum as I think we're wandering into. But this is what Neil Young wants. He wants us to keep on rocking in a heavily restricted, censored, only approved statement world where he has a lot of money, and if anybody says anything that he doesn't like, they should be taken off of Spotify. He's basically saying, because I don't like what Joe Rogan is saying, Spotify, I hereby demand that you cancel Joe Rogan's deal and make him bankrupt.
Well, sadly, this is in a high level of analysis. Or simplistic level of analysis. When you go into that book I told you about, Double Entry, which I'm reading about the history of accounting, for centuries in Western civilization, the powers that be have clamped down on spreading useful information to maintain control via. I mean, this is not a new idea. I mean, this is the way things have rolled for a long time. And to see all these new tools of science and technology that empower us to do what we're doing here with this viewership around the world relatively conveniently and quickly, to see we have all these new tools, but the people who sit on top of the food chain are saying, no, you can't play with those toys.
Yeah.
Those are for me.
Right.
And I get to make all the money, and I decide who gets to play, and I don't want to hear your annoying criticism exposing me for my fraud.
Right. That's why Neil Young is evil. And it's the same thing that they're trying to do to me, by the way, with lawfare. It's not enough that Neil Young could have just put out a statement that I disagree with this guy and, I'm starting a podcast, I'm Neil Young, and I'm going to put out why didn't he do that?
Yeah.
That's what he should have done. But it's lowlifes and scumbags like Neil Young and all the people who are suing me who say, oh, we're going to make up a bunch of lies about you and then use our more powerful platform, money, whatever, to try to crush you because we can't debate you, we can't deal with you, we just have to damage you. But people who are sponsors of the show are helping me fight that. People who want to help me fight that can become sponsors of the show. And if Spotify, I might cancel my Spotify if they say that Joe Rogan has misinformation, unless he says something that's incorrect. But thanks for staying with us, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.